When I left university, I approached a number of companies that I liked the look of, and I sent them a CV and a letter. And in that letter, I said, "This is the industry I want to work in. These are my skills. I'm willing to work for nothing for 6 months." And I can't tell you how powerful that is. So welcome, this is the Business and Life podcast with Matthew and Ben, where we talk about everything related to business and life. So this is our podcast number one. About finding a mentor. We're going to start with an introduction about the pair of us, what we do, how we got to where we are, and then move on to mentoring and where we think mentoring has helped us get to where we are today, and any tips to finding that mentor that will help you sort of get into that position that you want to in business and in life. So do you want to give a little background about you, Matthew?
Yeah, 100%. So first of all, Ben and I met through, I guess, the industry and trying to learn and trying to get to grips around M&A. So I think a bit of an introduction to my, I guess, work life is quite interesting. So personally, I'm an engineer by degree, pretty much. But then I realized pretty much after a year that I was just not into engineering whatsoever, and started getting into business little by little. So trying to sell stuff online, trying to provide services like lawyers. Actually, was the kind of the first niche that I tried to get into.
Lawyers.
Yeah, lawyers.
What did you do with lawyers?
I try to sell websites to them.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah,
that's interesting. How did it work out?
I kind of cold called back in my city in San Sebastian, which is not that entrepreneurial at all. Started cold calling like a ton of business owners. Grabbed two meetings with them. Went to those meetings, trying to sell my services, and all I did was speak, which is exactly what you don't need to do in sales, right? You need to listen and you need to find whether they actually have those pains. So that was an experience. Pretty much got ignored after those meetings. But you learn.
Yeah. And you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, you do. So
I think everyone starts somewhat with making websites or building their own websites, trying to sell things online. It's almost like everyone's entry level step into starting their own business, really, isn't it?
Yep, 100%. And that's just to finish off my end, because I think Ben has a really interesting side note on that as well. Then went into trying to learn about M&A, got a job in management consulting, trying to help large corporate clients, and then smaller tech startup scale up their businesses on a strategic point of view. Figured out that the way to move forward is really to earn equity inside businesses, because you want dividends, you want capital gains, you want management fees, everything but a salary, at least if you want to be an entrepreneur at least. And from there, started building up a bit of a network. Then that's when I started meeting you. Got to work with a pretty successful entrepreneur who now teaches some people on how to buy and sell businesses, and that's where I kind of got to where I'm at today. I'm a partner within a private equity firm that invests and acquires small and medium-sized enterprises. A company called Untitled Capital. We're very active in the market right now, building up an office over in Madrid, which is where I'm currently at. And I think this is going to be really interesting as a conversation as we go into business, life, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and so on. So I'll throw the ball up to you, Ben, to give a bit of an introduction.
And I'll also add that you're only 26 years old.
23. 23.
23, sorry, 23.
Yeah.
23 years old.
Yeah.
And you're already at 23 a partner in a private equity firm. I think
Yep.
most people are still at university at your age, so
Yep.
even that in itself is a massive accomplishment.
Yeah. It's once you're in it, you don't feel it like it, to be honest. But if you look from the outside, then it's like, whoa, that's pretty cool.
So I mean, my background, I started in investment banking for a couple of years. I didn't really like my job in investment banking. It wasn't the typical American US investment bank. It was more focused on sort of smaller mid-market deals, but in investment banking, as some will know, you rely quite heavily on the partners to bring in deals. And when there's no deals coming in, there's no work for you to do. And if you don't have very active partners, then it comes down to the analyst to bring in the deals. And as an analyst at the age of 21, 22, what contacts do I have in the real world that are going to help me sort of bring in multi-million-pound deals? Very, very few. I don't really know those kind of people. It's very difficult. So I sort of took it on my own shoulders to go out there and try and build a network. And it was pretty tough, starting with not a lot of help from the partner as well, because they had other business interests. But it definitely taught me a lot in terms of how to do basic financial modeling and sort of the responsibility of people aren't going to do things for you. You've got to go out there and do things yourself. So that taught me a lot. And then I moved into an investment analyst role where I always saw myself as a portfolio manager, someone who was managing their own fund one day. I've always been interested in the public equities market and been investing since I was sort of in my mid to late teens. And that was sort of my next step. And I had planned to go all the way to sort of 30 years old, start my own hedge fund. But I suffered from poor health during my sort of stint there, which made me sort of drop out, and I had to sort of adapt, and that's when I started my own business. Started a couple of online businesses, and then combined my M&A experience and my entrepreneurialism to start my investment and acquisition company, which is now grown to sort of a £50 million acquisition investment company in the matter of just a couple of years. So I think if you've got the will to do it, these kind of things really can be achieved. So at the age, and I'm 29 now, so at the age of 29 to have a £50 million investment and acquisition company is pretty unheard of for people our age. So
it's just to let the audience know. So Ben and I met each other when we're pretty much you had a business, right? An e-commerce business. I was just stepping out of uni at that point. And then from there, literally in 2 years time, you've gone from $500,000 to 50 million.
It's crazy. People would say, how have you done that? It almost sounds too good to be true. But I always say it's not the hardest workers who achieve success. It's those who understand the market, understand where you can achieve success. You can work extremely hard in life and never ever become financially free. And yet someone who doesn't work a lot of hours but works very smartly can be financially free and successful. So I'm a big believer that it's what you're doing, not sort of how hard you work. And if you have both of those, so if you're working very hard and you're doing the right things, then you're going to be very, very successful, in my opinion.
I was watching the other day, Ben, and we're going to go into how to find the mentor, especially in our kind of area of expertise, I guess. But I was listening to a podcast the other day where everyone has the same resource, and that's time. And how you allocate time and towards what you allocate time is what will make a massive difference. So you can allocate time towards, a McDonald's job, which is going to pay you $10 per hour, if so, or you can spend your time making offers on deals, structuring deals for acquisition, negotiating debt with financial institutions and so on. So the time expenditure is going to be the same, but it's just where are you allocated that one single thing that we all have, which is time.
Yeah, and that's especially true of business owners. I mean, a lot of business owners that are very poor allocating their time, focusing a lot on admin work and doing things that really aren't the most profitable, aren't the most best for the company in terms of sales and growing the business.
Yep.
And they've been reluctant to bring someone in to take on their role because they think, oh, well, I can do this. I don't want to be paying someone else to do this role. But what they find is when they do bring people in to take on the admin and the small roles that they were doing, that frees them up to do the more important things that are going to actually help and grow the business. I can't tell you how many SMEs that I've spoken to, and that is the situation. They're sort of never, they've got to sort of 20, 30, 50 employees, and they're like, all right, I've got my role now. I'm not going to hire anyone else in. We're fine. We're doing fine. We're growing how I want, or not growing at all.
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable with where we are. I don't want to hire someone in if it's going to sort of cost me 30, 40,000.
Yeah.
And from their perspective, that's taking that 30 to 40,000 from their profits. But really, what it is freeing up their opportunity to make more profits in the future.
Yeah.
And it's a mindset that I think a lot of business owners have that needs changing because it's a big problem.
Why do you think getting to the point which you are, which is a 50 million revenue portfolio company, having acquired how many companies right now? I believe it was 12 last time we spoke. Was it?
Yeah, so it's about 16 now.
16. There you go. What has been the role of a mentor on that journey?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I think a lot of people find mentors from different places, and I always struggled to find someone who I thought would help me on my way. Mm-hmm. And my business partner, who I'm working with, when I first approached him and when we first had a conversation about setting up our company and building out a portfolio of businesses, he thought the idea was great, but in terms of acting as a mentor to me, he wasn't really that to me. He was more my business partner. So I guess from my perspective, a lot of the mentors I got were from books I read, from other business owners, other entrepreneurs. I didn't really have that one person who sort of had their hand on my shoulder, telling me what to do. It was very much me going out there on my own and getting the knowledge from people to do the right things. And I know a lot of people have mentors in their family, fathers, grandfathers, uncles, older brothers. I'd never really had that, or even friends. A lot of people have friends that are very supportive and are very helpful, or they've already got to that point that you want to get to. But I didn't. I had none of this, so it was really kind of on my own shoulders to go out there and build what I wanted to and do what I wanted to do. I think that there's a lot of value still, and people don't do it as often as they should in reading books and learning from people that have been successful. I think if you can understand how people are successful, it's much easier to replicate. You look at it's as simple as sort of taking the top 100 wealthiest people in the world, reading about their stories. How did they get to where they are now? Or find a niche that you like and find that leader in the niche and see what has he done to get to where he is and how has he done that. 100%. So I think but saying that, having a mentor along the way would have certainly been better for me. It would have helped me. I've made a lot of mistakes on my journey, and it has been difficult, and really I've been learning by researching and reading and doing all these kind of things, where if I did have a mentor, I probably would have shortened. I may have left investment banking earlier. I may have started this 2 or 3 years ago. I may be a £500 million portfolio of companies at the moment. So I think there's definitely a real positive effect of having a mentor that can help you in your industry.
So I think the difference between ourselves, because I do believe personally I've had like a mentor. My business partner right now has been kind of like my mentor who has guided me quite a bit, and all the mistakes that I didn't even know I was going to make, I've seen them correct them before getting to that point. What do you think you've done correctly to surround yourself with the right people that kind of act as mentors but are now business partners? Like
Yeah.
what gets you to the point where you're surrounded by the right people? Because you mentioned,
Yes.
you don't come from like a background where you've been surrounded by that kind of mindset, atmosphere, and so on. What's been the key differentiator on that front?
I think I've been somewhat lucky in having a business partner who sees the same way as I do.
Mm-hmm.
I think finding someone who has got the same goals and same ambitions is going to really, really help.
Yeah.
If you want to go out and do something, if you want to start a business, start a portfolio, or whatever you want to do, and your business partner isn't as motivated as you are and isn't as interested in doing what you are as you are, then you're going to find it very difficult. You're going to hit a lot of roadblocks, and it's going to demotivate you, and you're not going to be anywhere near as far as you should.
Yeah.
So I've been lucky in that my business partner, although not my mentor, is someone that sees a lot of the same things than I do in the world. And I think you've had a mentor in your current role, but in the past you talked to me about mentors you have had that haven't gone so well. So you know what it's like to have had a mentor that doesn't work.
100%. That's actually 100%. So what's, I guess, a bit of a background on that. Started working pretty young, while I was at uni. Got surrounded myself maybe with not the right people at that time for myself in regards to, the help that I was going to get, how I was going to develop my self-confidence, my way of approaching business, just in general, the way in which I would approach life, to be honest. So what I learned from that is you want to surround yourself with people with probably like the right values, to be honest, first of all, because that's super important. The right ambitions, and the similar work ethics, methodologies, way of seeing business and life, because at the same time, it's the same thing at the end of the day, right? Because when you're an entrepreneur or when you're in a job that requires a lot of effort and a lot of attention, a lot of high performance on a consistent basis, it just really merges one with the other. But I would say, just go sensibly into every single relationship that you go into, whether that be mentorship, whether that be business partners, whether that be life partners, to be honest, and just sense yourself around whether this is the right person to work with or not. And when you find red flags, just don't go with it, and feel your gut. And that's as simple as that. That would be my advice on that front.
I think a lot of it has to do with you'll find out eventually whether the mentor you have is bullshitting you basically or not. Because if he's not producing the results, if he's not doing what he's doing, or if he's not doing it the right way, and you're not happy with how he conducts himself and how he conducts his business, then you know he's not the sort of person to go with. 100%. I think finding a mentor, I would say, go out there and send as many letters and inquiries to people you like and who you admire. Now you may not get many responses, but what I find is that when I am approached by people who ask me, how have you got to where you are, I'm more than willing to give back, because
100%.
I feel fortunate of where I've got, and I still don't have a lot of people reaching out to me and saying, "Oh, can you help me out?" And I've got the time to do that, and it's something that as a mentor you enjoy doing. I think there's nothing more rewarding than getting to where you are and helping people up along the way. and I've tried to do this with friends, but it has been difficult. I think you have.
Have your friends approached you trying to see kind of how have you done it with their own approach, or have you been like the one just showing them the path, but kind of like creating that friction between, yeah, I think you should be like this, like what's been your experience?
Yeah, so it's more. I mean, they always say you should surround yourself by people that are going to bring you up, and
Yep.
your friends are the most important people in your life in terms of who you surround yourself with and where you want to be in life. They say introduce yourself or have a look at your friends, and that will tell you where you're going to be in 10 years.
100%.
And if you looked at Michael's friends, you wouldn't be particularly impressed, and you wouldn't think I was going to go anywhere. So
Yep.
I think when I started becoming successful, and when what I was doing was working well, I tried to bring my friends up with me, and generally the response wasn't fantastic, and they weren't completely positive about what I was doing, and I think that's just a mixture of sort of immaturity, lack of ambition, and in part, maybe not the knowledge and determination to do it, and so you can teach someone everything you know.
Yeah.
But they still have to go out there and want to do it themselves. You can't show someone how to make £50 million and do it for them. You can show them how to make it, but they have to go out there and achieve it themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't believe that anyone that is rich and is successful, no matter whether they've got a good family, a good mentor, they've still had to do that themselves. They still had to go out there and work hard. And I think people take that for granted, that sort of rich people are getting rich and success off the back of poor people or just through luck. But it's just not the case. I think any wealthy, successful business person to get to where they are has had to work very hard to get there.
Yeah.
And so that was the kind of the roadblock I found with my friends, in that they weren't particularly ambitious enough to understand what I was doing, and a lot of it was also, I think, jealousy, in that he's doing so well that sort of like, rather than try to bring themselves up to that level, it was let's try and bring him down to our level. So it's almost like any achievement was sort of belittled and not looked fondly of, and sort of joked around and sort of said, what I'm doing is serious, and where I've got to is
Very
better
serious,
than and better than a lot of people that business people my age. And I think if they just had a bit of humility, they would sort of approach these kind of things differently. I don't know if you've had the same kind of thing with your friends and telling them where you are.
Yes and no. So initially I was like, everyone needs to be like this. I was like in that crazy mode where I started like figuring myself out. I started understanding that, holy shit, other people don't have the same ideas as I do. So then you start comparing, you start creating a lot of friction. But as time goes, you just like, or I've been just like, they're just doing their own thing. I'm doing my own thing. I'm just gonna keep doing that. They're friends for a certain area of my life. They're not friends for another certain area of my life. But I love them. But they just don't understand what I'm trying to do and trying to build. Because at the end of the day, like, entrepreneurs normally are weird creatures, right? Like we're a bit more, we're a bit more out there, no? At the end of the day.
So do you not talk to them about what you do? You just sort of keep it completely separate, and sort of, my friends are my friends, my business is my business. I'm not going to discuss my business with my friends.
If they ask, yes, but I won't go into any detail whatsoever. Why? Because, for example, right, with what we do, I mentioned to them, the fact that when you make an acquisition, there's an upfront payment and then there's deferred, right? And they're like, what's deferred? And then what they started doing, they started laughing, they started joking, blah, blah. So what I do now is I just say, this is what I do very briefly, and then I shut up, and then I change the conversation because I know where it's going to go,
Yeah, and it's almost like you don't want to. I think a lot of them might feel inadequate in that you sort of say to them, "This is how
Yeah,
I do it, and this is the kind of this is how I want to. This is the business I want to buy. This is how I do it." And they sort of say, "Well, how are you going to do that?" And then you start explaining it to them, they don't understand, and it
yeah,
starts this whole sort of feeling of, well, this guy is.
yeah,
How does he know all of this and I don't? And it makes it awkward.
yeah. It really does.
But
Um,
I think the main problem I find is that they're supposed to, as friends, they're supposed to give you that support. They're supposed to be your support network. And when you are being successful, when you are trying to accomplish something in life,
yeah,
you do need you need so little encouragement.
yeah,
I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about this a lot, in that nobody gets any encouragement anymore.
yeah,
It's almost like people are just crying out for someone to say, "Well done, you've done a good job," because nobody does anymore. Everyone just sort of belittles the idea of success, and in a lot of countries, just look down on. I know, especially in Europe, just look
Spain.
down on as,
It's bad.
you've done that off the back of poor people. How comes you're so successful, or you should be giving more money away.
Yep.
And I think the UK is becoming a little bit more like that, and even the US, which previously was sort of admiring these billionaires and looking up to successful people as, well done, look what they've accomplished,
Yeah.
and it's now becoming sort of, how have they accomplished this? Why have they accomplished this? Look how wealthy they are. How bad is that? And I think that's a real problem.
It really, really is. And I think it just comes down to, like, do you want to improve your life or don't you? If you want to improve your life, then you're going to start thinking differently, right? And those that don't want to go through that pain of starting to think differently get stuck, start criticizing, and do all this stuff that doesn't improve society, right? Which is why, sometimes you've got to cut ties with some friends because they're not helping you out. I'm not a big
Yeah,
believer, to be honest, in like just cutting ties and like being just like disappearing. I have isolated myself for like a while, like at some point, because you need to like really focus if you're trying to build something.
yeah,
But you just have to figure out that your friends or the friends that you've had throughout your life, they change over time and they're for like different reasons, right? So this friends for like 3 hours, this friends for weeks, this friends for years, and it's just
yeah,
life.
yeah. And so I think, to anyone out there who listens to this podcast, I think, don't count on your friends to help you out along the way. While it sounds depressing,
Yeah,
it's the only person that you can rely on to get to where you want to be is yourself.
yeah,
And if you have a good mentor, the mentor. So
yeah.
coming back to sort of the topic of the conversation, tell me about how the current partner you're working with has helped you out and
Yeah.
got you to where you are now. Where would you be without him, really?
Uh, I mean, I think first of all, the one that's seeking that mentorship, needs to be the one practically chasing and trying to add value to the person that you want some help from. So what I did is, it's kind of like you give and then you receive, right? So
Yeah, that's a good
how
point.
I started out doing is just favors, literally just favors. I messaged him, or I would message him constantly, ask him some questions, send some deals over. So we're in the M&A space, so the more companies you introduce to someone, the more possibilities they may have of closing and acquiring companies and buying companies. So what I started doing is I learned a skill set that I could add value through. So my skill set initially was deal sourcing. So being able to get in contact with business owners and then introduce those business owners over to someone that is looking to buy them out. Um, it literally started out like that, me introducing deals, jumping on calls with them to try and explain that. From there, you get a bit more of a relationship going. You try and add value through other ways. And as time goes and as you progress throughout the deals and so on, you just get into other types of conversations, meaning, what are you doing right now? Matthew, or what's your plans for the next year? Like, are you, would you be okay, or would you want to join our team? And you just literally briefly scale up the ladder of both confidence, value add, and your journey towards where you want to go, essentially.
I think that's a very good point in that a lot of people think mentorship is a one-way thing.
Yeah.
Sort of you go and approach a mentor and you say, I want to get to where you are, can you help me?
Yeah,
that's fine. I mean, if someone approaches me like that, I would say sure, but there has to be some value swap.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to me, how have you got to where you are? I'll say, well, this is how I've done it, but to learn more, you need to help me out and do some sourcing, do some work here, do some this, and then in exchange for what you do for me, I give back to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's key in finding a mentor, that you can't expect it to all be your way. And a lot of people, I think, when I left university, I approached a number of companies that I liked the look of, and I sent them a CV and a letter.
Mm-hmm.
And in that letter I said, this is the industry I want to work in, these are my skills, I'm willing to work for nothing for 6 months.
100%.
And I can't tell you how powerful that is. And I had a lot of responses back from those people, and they said to me, we'd love to have you on board, or even if they didn't say they'd love to have me on board, they say, I really, really respect that you'd come to us directly, but we don't have any positions for you at the moment. But they respect someone from coming direct and approaching them that way.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people are willing to get to where they want working for free.
I'll give you an example, Ben. I just hired an operation analyst just like this week. He started on Monday. And this kid was approaching me on LinkedIn saying like, hey, have you guys got like a role that I could join? He offered to join any role or anything almost for free, right? And it's someone that's really proactive, knows what he wants. He actually quit university because he didn't see the value in that. And he just tried to differentiate himself out of the pack, right? So we see that there's a lot of people doing like master's degrees, all kinds of studies, which is great, but is that going to find you a job, or how's that going to differentiate you from like the thousands and even millions of people that are doing the same thing?
Exactly. Yeah. And you'll be laden with debt, and what actual value do you have in a master's degree compared to someone who has been in industry for 1 or 2 years? I mean, I would always take the person in industry who was working for us 100%. For free as an intern. She was 100%. Expenses. We paid for her expenses. She had no experience in interior design. She wanted to become an interior. Yeah.
Yep.
And that guy, and I can tell you that intern,
he's going to kill it. So he's in an industry that's super difficult to get in. So private equity, which is very difficult to get into. He's 20 years old. And he's working with a team that closes in between like 12 to 20 deals every single year. So he's learning everything at 20 years old that's going to catapult him throughout life, And that's just because he's tried to do a different approach, try to add value, and is willing to do anything. And that's what it takes, I think. That's what it takes.
Sorry about that, guys. We had some technical difficulties towards the end of that podcast, but it will be sorted for next time. See you in the next episode. Should be out tomorrow. Thanks.